Hey everyone, so something that I've noticed is that every so often when people are applying for a marriage-based green card, they're nervous. Maybe they watched a movie depicting what the marriage-based green card interview is like, and maybe they saw a movie about a mean immigration officer grilling the couple, and people are nervous. So I want to record this video to help put your mind at ease and talk about what the marriage green card process looks like, and I want to go over some helpful tips and some red flags. So we're going to go all over that in this video, so make sure to stick around. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Ashoori and I'm a U.S. immigration lawyer based in Los Angeles, California. And at my law firm, we regularly post videos to share important tips with you, to go over the latest news regarding immigration. And ultimately, we just want to help you and share information with you. So if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button now. So as I mentioned, in today's video, we're going to help share some information regarding the marriage-based green card process. Again, as I've mentioned, sometimes people are nervous about this whole process. So hopefully we will help to put your nerves at ease in this video. So let's get started. So when you apply for a marriage-based green card, when you apply for a green card based on marriage to either a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, one of the most important requirements is to show that you are in a bona fide marriage with your spouse. What this means is that you're in fact in a real marriage, that you're not in a marriage just to get a green card, and that you're in a marriage with your spouse because you intend to build a life with your spouse. So that again is one of the most important requirements when you're going to apply for a marriage-based green card. Now, how does the U.S. immigration system determine whether or not someone is in a valid bona fide marriage? Well, there's two main ways that USCIS and the immigration laws strive to figure this out. The first way is through the immigrant petition. Basically, one of the first steps when you're applying for a marriage-based green card is to submit a Form I-130. Again, this is the immigrant petition. And with the Form I-130, you are supposed to include documentation showing that you're in a bona fide marriage. So the documentation that you submit with your case will help to demonstrate to the immigration officer that you're in fact in a real marriage. And we'll go over some of those documents in a moment. Now, the second way that USCIS and the immigration system seeks to determine whether you're in a bona fide marriage is through the immigration interview. So towards the end of the process, you have an interview with an immigration officer, and they basically go through your case, and the objective is to make sure that everything checks out with your case and to observe whether you're in a bona fide marriage. So those are the two ways that the immigration system is set up to determine whether or not you're in a bona fide marriage. So now that we know how USCIS determines whether a marriage is bona fide or not, let's go over some things that you can do to help USCIS to see that your marriage is in fact bona fide. So let's go back to the first step of the process, when you're filing your Form I-130. The documents that you include with this petition are very important. You want to include strong documentation that your marriage is bona fide. So how do you do this? Well, one form of evidence that's very strong is showing photographs with one another. You can show photographs traveling together, photographs of your wedding day, photographs with each other's family members, etc. These type of documents can help demonstrate that you're in a bona fide marriage. Another very strong form of documentation is showing consistent, regular communication with one another, particularly if there's affectionate communication with one another. So screenshots of text messages, emails, screenshots of call logs demonstrating that you speak to one another regularly. That's another helpful form of documentation. Another helpful form of evidence is a lease agreement with both of your names on it, or a deed to property with both of your names on it, showing that you live with one another. That can also be very helpful. And yet, another form of documentation that's very helpful is showing that you share a bank account with one another, that you have a joint bank account. And not just that you have a joint bank account, but that joint bank account is the main bank account that you use to pay various expenses and bills. So again, evidence of a shared bank account that has transaction history on it, showing that you actually use that account. This video is not intended to go through all the different forms of documentation, but that's just a helpful start to put you on the right track in terms of some documents that you should include with your case to help ease the immigration officer's mind that your marriage is in fact bona fide. So now let's switch gears and talk about the interview. So as I mentioned, towards the end of the process, you have an immigration interview. And this interview is an opportunity for the immigration officer to make sure that everything checks out with the case. But again, I don't want you to be nervous. I don't want you to be alarmed. I just want you to better understand what takes place here. So during this immigration interview, the immigration officer is going to ask basic questions about your relationship with your spouse. For example, they'll ask how you met, where you met, how did he propose? These types of questions are very common during the marriage-based interview process. Now, one thing that the movies sometimes show is they'll show some sort of a scary situation where one person is taken out of the room and the other person is grilled on very challenging questions, very detailed, specific questions, and then that person is taken out of the room and the other spouse is brought into the room and asked similar questions to compare answers. And this is something that our clients will sometimes see, and it'll scare them. So the reality is, this sometimes happens in a marriage-based green card case. It's called a Stokes interview. And the reason why this will happen is if the immigration officer suspects fraud in the case. Again, if the immigration officer suspects that there's some form of marriage fraud, then they can conduct a Stokes interview, which is a more intense interview where the couple can oftentimes be separated and interviewed separately. But again, if the immigration officer does not suspect fraud, and for the most part the case is pretty straightforward and it's readily apparent that the couple is in a bona fide marriage, then it's very unlikely that a Stokes interview will be conducted. A lot of people are scared that if they get one question wrong on the interview, then their case is automatically going to be shifted to the fraud department and the immigration officer is going to think that their marriage is fake. But that's not the reality. Sometimes couples don't know every single detail about one another, and sometimes one of the spouses might not have the right answer on the tip of their tongue. Immigration officers understand this. So an immigration officer's job is to view the case as a whole. The immigration officer is supposed to take a holistic view of the case and not just laser in on one question that was missed here or one piece of documentation that wasn't included here. Again, the immigration officer's job is to look at the case as a whole. So again, I want to put your mind at ease. Don't be nervous. If your marriage is in fact bona fide, chances are that this will shine throughout the immigration process. So now I want to go over some helpful tips to help you prepare for your immigration interview. So tip number 1 is to review the documentation that was submitted with your case. The more that you familiarize yourself with the case file, the complete file that was submitted to immigration, the more comfortable you're going to be, the better you're going to understand what you've submitted to immigration, and the immigration officer could very well ask you about the various documents that were submitted with your case. So the more familiar you are with those documents, the more prepared you will be to answer questions that arise from those documents. The second tip that I have for you is to bring the correct documentation with you to the interview. Before the interview, you're going to receive an interview notice, and the interview notice should list certain documentation that USCIS wants you to bring to the interview. Make sure to bring that documentation. Failure to bring that documentation can be problematic for your case. It can result in your interview date being postponed potentially, or result in other consequences. So you want to make sure that you're bringing the correct documentation to the interview. My third tip for you is to do some research into the types of questions that typically get asked during the marriage-based green card interview. Earlier, we went through some of the basic questions that get asked, but there's tons of information online to help you prepare for this interview. So again, do some research, see what types of questions typically get asked. Again, because the more you know, the more prepared you'll be, the more comfortable you'll be, and the less nervous you should be. So far we've gone over some basic information about the marriage-based green card process. We talked about how USCIS determines that a marriage is bona fide. We talked about some documents to include in your case, how to better prepare for your immigration interview. Now I want to talk about some red flags. These are certain things that will cause an immigration officer to raise an eyebrow. So the reason I want to share these with you is so that you can better prepare to explain to an immigration officer if they raise concerns about these various red flags. So the first red flag is if there is a major age difference between the couple. Let's say there's a 20+ year age difference between the couple. That could be something that could make an immigration officer inquire further, just to see whether in fact the marriage is bona fide or not. Another red flag to an immigration officer is if the couple does not share a common language, meaning that they don't have a language with which they can both communicate in. So that can be alarming to an immigration officer. It can be a red flag to an immigration officer because they could wonder, how does this couple communicate? And lastly, another red flag is if the couple does not live together. Again, if you do not live together, you should be prepared to explain why you don't live together. The fact that you don't live together is not going to mean that your case is for sure going to get denied, but you should be prepared to explain how you are in fact in a bona fide relationship with your spouse, and yet you don't live together. So there you have it. Again, in this video, just to recap, we did a big picture overview about some of the important points of the marriage-based green card process. We talked about the requirement that the marriage must be bona fide. We talked about how USCIS goes about determining whether or not a marriage is bona fide. We talked about some documents to include in your case, how to prepare for your immigration interview, what types of questions may get asked during the marriage-based green card interview. We talked about some red flags, and I hope you got a lot of value from this video. I hope this video, at the very least, helps to put your mind a little bit more at ease about how this process works. If you know anybody that can benefit from this information, please feel free to share this video with them. As I mentioned earlier in this video, we want to help you. So the more people that can benefit from this information, that can actually watch this video, the better. As always, thank you so much for tuning into this video, and I will see you on the next one.